start. Right. So good morning again. Welcome to the session. For those of us in the book, it's page 13. That's the page I just shown, sort of the orange and green table. And last week we were looking at the safety representatives, right? So if you just have a look back at that, you'll see we spoke about the safety reps. Sorry, I'm going too fast again, right? So the different types of reps, the safety rep and the representative of employee safety, the fact that they are required because of the law in the UK, right? So does anybody remember anything about them? Like which one of them have more power than the other one?
The SR.
Right, the SR, very good. Right? The SR have more power than the representative of employee safety. In fact, that one is like a degree person, and that's probably the big reason why that person have more power. The other one is like an elected representative, right? I did also say, sadly, though, they don't have any past papers. I mean, it could be a future question, but they don't have any past papers to say like you have, like a question to look back to see the differences. And I thought they express it on the table here. It's shown in a nice way that the orange and green kind of format, but they don't have any questions like that anyway, right? To see. All right, let's get to safety committee then, which is right on that same page. So I'll take it from here. So, and I'll come to your page 13 in a bit, right? But let's start as this kind of early anyway. So safety committees must be established if two or more safety representative requests one in writing. The employer has about 3 months to set up a safety committee if the safety reps in the UK request one in writing. Of course, in Trinidad and in Guyana, having a safety committee is the law, is actually a part of the OSHA, right? So in both countries, it's actually a part of our law as well. The safety committee should have a broad spectrum of persons. You see this in the book just now from the organization. If you have the book, can include one senior manager to demonstrate senior management commitment. Um, the safety committee must meet regularly and action items must be completed within the set time scales. Otherwise, your committee will seem to be a waste of time. Like if you say you want to get things done then, right, by the next month or the next committee, because some things they could get it done within the next, like committees meet every month, right? So one way to gain respect in the job site as a safety is if items are raised then, like in the safety committee, and then you get it done. And one way to lose respect is if items are raised in the committee and then you never get it done then, right? So eventually your safety committee will just be seen as I mentioned, as a waste of time, right? Safety committee should have well-stated objectives as this will drive the effectiveness of the health and safety in the organization. It can include a study of accident and incident trends, the results of audits conducted, a review of any new legislation and how it can potentially affect the organization, reviewing risk assessments and the recommendations from the safety representatives, and feedback must be given, well, to employees who may have raised a matter with the committee anyway, right? Or raised a matter in general. Factors which influence how effective a committee is or is not. So you could think about probably anything that you was a part of, coming through, school, coming through high school, I'm talking about, right? So was there something that you was good at? And like if you was a part of any committee, it doesn't have to be a safety committee, right? So like a committee for um one of the religious holidays or programs we have in Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana as well. So like what would have made it effective then, right? And what would have made it not effective? So um poorly stated objectives and unrealistic targets will make a committee ineffective. Poor chairmanship, right? Inconsistent meetings and participants. Lack of resources, management commitment to fulfill its goal, deviating from the set agenda, a low number of action items or action of items being completed, inconsistent, or a lack of a proper meeting room, right? So there's lots of answers to that as to why a committee would not be effective in practice, right? So you can look at your books. Page 13 we were on. And if you turn the page, you'll see like some of the people that could make up a safety committee could be because really and truly, I mean, this is just, like an idea anyway, right? So this is page 14. They have worker representatives, one or more operational manager with authority, a safety advisor, an occupational health nurse or doctor, facilities manager, human resource manager, training manager, right? They have the function of the committee, bottom of page 14, studying accidents and ill health statistics. I could probably put back mine here, right? Reviewing the reports from active monitoring in the workplace, examining safety audit reports, considering reports and information from the HSC, considering reports submitted by safety representatives, assisting in the development of procedures and policy, monitoring the effectiveness of training, monitoring the effectiveness of the safety communication, right? So all good stuff. It's an open book exam. If something like this was to come, that would be the question. This is often the question, like what is, like comment on if the committee was effective. And maybe it is in the case study, maybe they will say that the supervisor did chair the meeting, and maybe they will say that safety is on the agenda, and maybe they will say that um like workers give their feedback. So it's how the case studies come, then you would just give your thoughts and you can just say, in my opinion, the safety committee is effective as the safety manager is passionate about safety. Just quoted from the case study, right? Your exam is really a big comprehension sort of exercise, so it's not that difficult, right? But I could vaguely remember that there was a safety committee question, but like safety committee, then when you open up paper, it's not like a go-to topic now, right? So I've actually opened up two here. It's just to find them. Maybe I share one with you, right? So like safety committees is not, it's not like a go-to topic then, right? Like the go-to topics could be like moral, legal, and financial. Can you see the passive in the background?
Yes,
Yeah?
sir.
No? Yes? Okay, yeah. Yeah. So like culture is a go-to topic. It's kind of difficult to predict NEBOSH in itself, but risk assessments, accident investigation. This is a strange paper because it doesn't have any, I didn't see any moral, legal, and financial, or did I miss it? Like they didn't have any law questions in this paper. This is June 2022. I have another one. Let me try to share the other one with you all. Just to prove the point now, right? Let me see what I do with it, right? Uh, like, so safety committee, I mean, it's a nice question. Oh, this is the same one, sorry. Or did I open the same one twice? Look, I could open the same thing twice, right? I could, I mean, let's say I could find another one. It's big harder when you see we don't preload the Zoom screen with these things. But you could find one more. Open anyone. Let me see. This is like a 2021 paper. Would I like to get something? I'll get you to repeat too much of the modern ones anyway. Uh, Let me see if I can share that with you now. So that's the thing though, right? Is that I mean like the paper is not hard. So it's not to say it's like a difficult exam. It just is long, right? The exam is kind of long because remember, it's to kind of find these magical lines to back up what you're saying, right? This is December 2023. Can you all see that one? Yeah, okay. So this is okay, where we see health and safety morals. These are like common sense questions, right? What is positive about the approach? And you just have to go to the passage and just get it. So you like for this exam, you don't even have to study. You could, but you don't have to, right? What is negative about the DM's approach? That's just in the case study. Nothing really hard with that, right? But I join the fact then that certain things are not that common. So we could come back to this one because I know human factors. We come into that is kind of common. Look, cost here, direct and indirect cost. Cost is always kind of common. So we saw moral, we saw that, right? 7 questions. So imagine that after all of this work, Jerome, that's us telling some of you the NIBOSH is not hard to pass. I don't know nobody scare about NIBOSH, right? But the thing is, it's kind of long now because you have to go into the passage and find these backup lines and whatever have you, right? Everything you say have to have like a backup line. Everything is your answer must be based on the scenarios. You should support it with the scenario. Everything is like that. That is what kind of takes the time, right? Let me get back to the PowerPoint because I was trying to prove the point here there that not everything you see is exam. And I've said that here, which is good. And at the same time, too, a working person, which will be some of you all here. By the way, thanks for turning on the cameras before it was all off, right? But a working person could pass this exam. You just have to have your head on, right? And yes, there are some of those go-to topics, but this isn't one of them. And that's the point I was trying to prove to you. Now, would it be and could it be? The answer could be yes, but it's not. They could just open two past papers there, right? Safety committees and safety reps and stuff is not too much of a go-to topic, right? So let's move on. Let's get to training. The next thing in the book, you'll see training on page 15. Training is a good question. Training is kind of common. That doesn't mean it's a go-to thing, and I'll tell you the training question just now too. So it's not everything in training either. So could I take it from here? I'll take it from this slide, right? It has some here on training, but this was in respect to the safety reps. So let us start out or from my training starts from. So training improves human reliability as it reduces the chance of human failure. Like if I was you all, I would have been happy and excited to do the exam because it's that easy. And this is the big NIBOSH everybody talking about, right? Anyway, types of training include induction, job specific, including job change training, new technology training, refresher training, introduction of new legislation training, management training such as IOSH Managing Safety 5.0, which is a course that I brought to the region. This is like if you go on any UK site and you type in HSC vacancy in England, you'll see this course in it. IOSH Managing Safely 5.0. Right? We were the first more than a decade ago. And during that, well, it's more than 15 years. I'll just try to be decent. But during that time, yeah. Just give me a minute. She had to be paid for somebody, right? Because yeah, sorry. No, I just had a child come in the office now, so I had to figure that she must, you know, be paid for somebody else. Yeah. So I was saying, yeah, it's like during that 15 years, a lot of people kind of jump on the bandwagon. 15 years later, everybody jump back off, but still is, NIBOSH is actually owned by IOSH. And this particular course, IOSH Managing Safety, is actually written into the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago, which I had no dealings with them at the point in time. But it's so strange that they wrote in that course for managers to do. It's like the number one management course they have worldwide. Check it up on YouTube, check it up wherever you go, right? We still the cheapest with it, I guess around the world as well, right? So yeah, so like managers need to be trained too, right? This is a management training course. When I say management, it doesn't have to be high up. It could be, like HSC officers, supervisors and stuff, right? Moving on, right? So when is training needed on recruitment at induction? When a new risk or increased risk is expected, in an increase in employment of vulnerable employees. So you have hired a young person or you have hired someone that's a bit differently able. It doesn't mean like they were born like that. They could have been too, but like we do have discrimination laws that they can't discriminate against persons that are differently able, right? So they're entitled to the same work experience as everybody is. What the employer normally would have to do is make adjustments for that person, right? If they're hearing impaired, they have to put things that are more visual. If they're visually impaired, put things more that the person could feel like braille. So all of that is a duty on the employer, right? So when it's training needed, if maybe you are hiring someone, hopefully it's not out of what is called tokenism. Tokenism is that they hire somebody that's differently able just to to boast then and say that you hire someone that's differently able. But hopefully it's not tokenism. And if you're doing it for the right reason, then the employers have to make sure that the rest of workers may have to be trained as well to maybe to handle that person. The person was mobilely impaired, right? So training is needed if you hire someone that is differently impaired. Someone is it. A recruitment of a new client or insurance company. Sorry, my mistake. A requirement of a new client. So again, a client may have requested maybe like I've actually done IOSH for that, right? This is Trinidad they're talking about, right? There was a not was, I mean, there is a company in North called MUSL, Marine Utility Safety Limited, I guess. And I think they take Trinidadians, they put them on different offshore vessels and stuff like that, right? But the strange thing is that like they called me some years ago. This is some years ago, right? But not too long. This is probably around probably just before the pandemic, right? Because it wasn't really pandemic. They called on they said a Norwegian company. Yeah, a Norwegian company had a vessel and they were taking in locals, but they wanted the locals to be trained in a UK-based training course. And straight enough, this was so weird because they said the company said IOSH managing safely. So I got some work like that out of that because some clients, like if you're from that part of the world now, like they would more prefer something that they are familiar with anyway, right? If there's a job change or process change, the point is if there's change, right? When is training needed? Again, folks, I can't always think of a question like these things, so I'm going to move on anyway. When is training needed? New legislation, new technology recommendation from auditor to keep up to date with national or global best practices such as the IOSH management course and process safety management courses that are now the industry norms around the world, right? So if you turn the page, you would see page 16, page 316, in fact, right? You would see induction training. And the reason for pausing with this one is not a big reason, but the reason is that that's what they bring for exam. Like most of the training questions have asked comment on if you thought the induction was effective, right? So in some case studies I've seen some good ones, eh? I saw some good ones. When they say comment, it doesn't mean it's always bad, right? Like sometimes like the case study would mention that the workers did get a good induction. They were shown videos and they were escorted, like for a walk after the orientation, right? But it's up to you then if you want to look at the book. Remember, hopefully you have your book, and this is your book. So you could write on your book. There's like there's no need to have a book and you're not using it, right? So you could use the points in the book. You could use the points in the slide to comment then on how effective the orientation was. So like if in the orientation, the case study mentioned the HSE policy was outlined. But fine, you can say, in my opinion, the orientation was good, was good, was a good practice because the supervisor made sure everyone knew the HSE policy. So that's the same point in the book and the same point in the slide. So I think you know how to use the information. Remember, the exam is not a recall, but it's like the use of the information, which is why it's called an open book exam, right? I'll just do two from here, right? Because I think seeing it in the book and seeing it in the slide, you could just use the information. So let's use that this one down here, accident reporting procedure. So maybe as you read the case study, they mentioned there was an accident and no one knew what to do. And the question is asked, comment on the effectiveness of the induction training. So you can say, in my opinion, the induction training was not effective with regards to accident reporting procedure. And then he said, this is in the case study where it was mentioned having had the accident, the employees did not know how to report it. And that's how simple your exam is. Tell me if you understand that. I tell you, if I was you, I'd be looking forward to exam. I would have just wanted to get this thing over with and pass it, right? Because isn't it, this is what keeping you back from getting your job or getting to wherever you have to get to if it's to get into a degree program or something, right? So tell me if you understand that. It don't make sense reading it because folks, you could read for yourself. We could all read it, right? And the information is in the book. The information is right here, right? So you can move on to the next one. But tell me if you understand this one, and you should take a note. You should take a note that this one is kind of common. We have seen this probably more than 5 times a day already, right? Tell me if you're okay with it, folks. And if you have to say something, yeah, when I say tell you can't say nothing because that doesn't mean that you're saying
Yes, sir.
anything, right? Yes, okay. If you're okay with that, we can go to page 18, 318. And when you turn this to me, you'll see chapter 3 is, well, 3.3 is finishing with this topic then. This one, human factors, 3.3 is finishing with this one. And next week, I tell you, is the project. And it's not even 9:30 as yet, right? By the way, too, the degree is just like this. And the NIBOSH diploma is just like this. Thank God. I mean, not really thank God, but I guess the pandemic did kind of change some things anyway. However, though, I don't know if things will change back to how it was. I mean, the world has kind of gone back to the way it was. Sadly so, because traffic and thing could have been avoided. Everybody could have stayed on online school, if you ask me, primary school and secondary school especially, instead of wasting time. Right? I've been honest with you. Look my son, right? Of course, this week is Diwali here, right? He was on online school, right? And the fact about the online system is that they made sure teachers were there now. And then parents were there too. So teachers couldn't waste time. He's telling me this week, like he had, out of 8 periods of the day, he had 6 free periods. Yesterday, he said he didn't have any class at all. So that is wasting time, government wasting time, right? The day after holiday, as far as I remember, ministry teachers have to come to school, but then, it's just a waste of time. So we just up and down on the road, in the highway, causing traffic, burning gas, just wasting time, right? Whereas, the pandemic would have taught us that if you had a class, the teachers, they would have been present and teaching because people would have been looking at them. Our parents, our grandparents would have been looking and yeah, they got more work done. What y'all think about that? It is true, but it seems as if like if human beings now kind of had to learn. Like we didn't learn that people could actually work and learn from home, right? And you learn better, in fact, because like even our school folks, right, which you all don't really know, the office is not the school owner, right? But even our school, we had issues with parking, as everybody is. We have issues with parking. Every Saturday was trouble for parking because we have about 100 students in the school at any given time, right? Parking was always an issue, and time, people coming from Mayaru, Tong, or South, Deep South was always an issue. Anyway, right? Like I said, what is what is anyway, right? All right. If you're okay with the induction question, I don't, I mean, I don't feel my just to take a quick look and see if those participants have anything on it again. I know it's not that popular. I've seen induction. I've seen it a couple of times, but I wouldn't say it's a go-to thing. And the point is, folks, it's an open book exam. If there was, an induction or a training question, fine. You could open the book. That's the thing about the 24-hour exam. You learn from home, right? And imagine you are getting a UK-based certificate from home, right? Back in the day, that was such a strange thing. You had to go to a college or something, right? Can you all see the other one? I just changed it. Can you all see June 2022 again? Yeah? Okay, good. Let's check this one. I think this one have one enough. Training, right? Training, right? So look at this one. An accident investigation reveals a general lack of awareness of health and safety in the scientific research organization. Based on this scenario only, what training would you recommend the scientific research organization arranges for the different types of workers to improve health and safety competence? That's a nice question, right? So all you have to do here, well, we're not going to do it, but I'll tell you the strategy here would have been to see the different types of workers it had, and then you could just go to Google and you didn't even have to go to Google, folks. You could have just seen what was going wrong there. You see how they have your accident investigation revealed a general lack of awareness of health and safety. So as you read the case study, if it said the workers did not know about risk assessment, so then you recommend risk assessment. If it said the workers didn't know about things like how to report the accident, because that's what I've seen here, Then you see accident investigation should have been part of the training that they do. So you're kind of using the case study again as what would have not been done if it was work at height. I don't know what it was. If it was somebody fell from a height, well, then you recommend work at height training. Folks, it's that easy, right? Where is that in the book? It's not in the book. It's in the case study. It's just common sense. What wasn't being done have to be done. Based on the scenario only, what training would you recommend to the scientific research organization, or that they arrange for the different types of workers? So the managers, definitely, you could use my slide and you can say IOSH managing safely. Definitely you can use that one because they say different types of workers. So you have training for the workers, you'll have training for the managers, right? So that's probably one you could probably pull from off the slide. But such a nice question. So do you all understand it that NIBOSH is not hard? There are two things you have to have really. You have to have your head on. You have to have your book or your notes in front of you. You could use Google too. Like a nice I was telling you all, I could have just Googled different types of trading. But the thing is, it'd probably be best to base it on what was going wrong in the case study, right? Like if they said there was no first aider or no one knew first aid, well, then you recommend first aid training. If it was a fire that occurred and no one knew to use the extinguisher, you recommend fire extinguisher training. How easy do you all want NIBOSH to be? Can't get easier than that, right? Going back to the notes, right? Let's try to finish today. Remember, tell I wanna you know, I wanna start that project next week. So 3.3, if you have your book, you're gonna line up here as well, human factors. I'll read a couple and then explain this because this is not hard, right? I'm gonna read first. This is actually the most powerful slide. Everything else after this doesn't really matter. Like all of these not really matter. All of this is just information, right? You could watch your book to page 18, have the same thing, right? So human factors. So human factors involve the following factors that could influence behavior at work in a way that could affect health and safety. Human factors include the job, the individual, and the organization. And that is the main thing you need to learn. Yeah, actually, we need to keep that one in your head, right? That the term human factors refer to all of these. It's not just the individual, all right? The term human factors include these three, like these three put together, the job, the individual, and the organization. So if you want to go really fast, you could just watch your book. So the first thing you notice in the book, well, I think I did individual first, but if you look at the book, they give you like what are the organizational factors then? I have mine here, right? What what are organizational factors, right? Like what this kind of comes back to the whole thing about culture. I'm not too sure if you remember the definition of culture, but remember culture was the individual and the organization. Well, if you just put one more with it, which is job, the three of them together are called human factors. If you want more explanation, not really explanation, is actually understanding, right? At the higher levels, they represent this like a Venn diagram. That should have been a circle, right? Yeah. So the higher level, they represent this as a Venn diagram, but the bigger circle represent the organization. You are working for the company, so you are inside of the organization and you are doing the job of the organization. So it's represented like that old-fashioned Venn diagram. This is the organization. You're working for an organization. They are the one that's paying you. You are working for the organization, so you are part of the organization. However, you're not doing your own thing. You are doing the job of the company, what they paying you to do, right? So that's like a bigger understanding. And all of these three are referred to as human factors. By doing the certificate, though, it does set up really nice to do the degree. And what I was trying to show you just now, right? What the approach is here, because it's an open book, like we don't need to really see and learn all of it. You just need to see it in your book, right? What they did here, they went on to give you like some organizational factors, then some individual factors, then some job factors, right? So that's what you see the approach is. If we look at the book, For organizational factors, I'm just going to read them out on page 19. They mention health and safety culture. Some of that we actually did in culture already. Commitment and leadership. The organization providing sufficient resources, right? Having good shift patterns, work systems, work patterns, right? Having proper communication. All of those are organizational factors then. Have good levels of supervision, good levels of consultation, good levels of training. They are all organizational factors, right? So, what I would have liked though, I mean, is that if you all have a highlight, if you get to highlight those things in your book, I'll tell you why just now, and you know why already, right? The other things, if you want to slide, I have it here, culture, leadership, resources, communication, right? Same thing. And then the individual factors is everything about you. We did this in culture already too, that you bring to the job, then you bring your attitude, good or bad, your level of skills, your habits, your personalities. You bring a level of education, language experience, competence, medication, stress level, phobias, personality, special needs to your organization. Yes, if you have a bad back, you may require a special chair. If you have, a fear for confined spaces, despite being a worker or a safety, you may not be able to work in a pipe or a vessel, right? You bring your stress level, you bring your medical history, right? Doesn't matter if you're healthy now. We all have things. This is life, right? Life happens. People go through it. Have young people that have, skin conditions or asthma or breathing problems, heart issues, right? You don't have to be old, right? So a worker could be coming to you and that person has, I remember one time the person was on steroids. They was on steroids because they had something wrong with their a young person, something wrong with their is it adrenal gland, right? So that's like they were on prescribed steroids. So if you do a drug test, so that's how I got to know about it. We did a drug test and the person tested positive for steroids, but then we had known about the condition before then, right? So you bring that to your company. Nothing is wrong with that, right? Nobody isn't Superman, right? So your stress level, your level of experience, your competence, you bring that to your company and you are doing all of this you bring to your company, your height, your weight, your strength, your fitness, your age. You can't change some of that. You could change some, but you can't change some. Can't change your age. Disabilities, you could probably change your gender now. Medical conditions, you may be able to change it if you have a surgery or something, right? But that's life. You can't discriminate. There are laws against that. You can't discriminate against like like we had like we have like before the pandemic we used to have a Christmas get together, right? So there was this Christmas get together we had, and there was this guy that was very tall, right? And in in my company we have one of the directors and he is very tall, but this guy was taller than him. The point is we didn't actually know the guy name. We found out his name. He was just a student anyway, but he had graduated and stuff, right? And today he and I are very good friends. He works at the airport. So like he works, like the security check whenever I go through and he sees me, he takes me out of the line every single time. Up to 2 weeks ago when I told you I think I had to go to the airport, I was leaving the airport. I heard somebody said, "Sir," from way up where he was at. I said, "Oh my God, this is the same guy calling me again, right?" He came downstairs. He had some fees to pay. He asked me if I'll take it. I said yes, and he paid it. But the point is that like you can't change your height then, you can't change your height. Whoever you are is who you are anyway, right? So that's about you. And then we mentioned here now. So the new one for today is the task. When I say new, because you'd have probably seen organization and individual already, because we did this under under culture, right? If you look on page 19, you'll see the job factors. And the job is like what you're doing. Remember, you are in the company. Hopefully, you're not on your phone all the time and you're doing the work of the company, right? So, what are you doing? The task to be done. What is your workload? The environment where the work is to be done. Is it comfortable? Is it air conditioned? Is it cold? Is it hot? The layout of controls and displays for doing a task. If you're like an operator, maybe somebody like a cashier, price mat, or at Massey, those of us in Guyana, are you standing? I think the cashiers in PriceSmart actually stand, right? PriceSmart, those of us in Guyana, that's like a place like Walmart anyway. I'm not too sure if they have a chair. Maybe they have. I probably noticed them standing anyway. Probably, I don't know if there is a chair. Probably cannot. Anybody could remember that? I can't consciously remember a chair. Like up to recently, I remember the people stand. I don't know if they stand by choice, but I don't know if there's a chair there, right?
No,
So
sir, they don't have any chairs at all.
they don't
They
have any
come
chair.
stand up
Okay.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing them standing up. I don't know if they
Yeah.
have a chair
Stand on anti-fatigue mat, sir.
or they stand on an anti-fatigue mat. But
Mhm.
if it there, well, next time I'll look for it because I can't remember seeing any anti-fatigue mat, but I will look for it the next time I did. I'll look and see if they're on it, right? So the job factors also include the frequency of the work. Frequency mean how often you're doing a task, duration, how long you're doing a task, 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, 16 hours, right? What is your work pattern? Do you have possible breaks, right? And of course, remember you're doing the job of the company. So all of that is influenced by the organization itself, right? So what I want to do here, what I want to show you, well, the rest of it I'll tell you is the rest of this slide is a support. The knowledge really stops right here. Actually, the knowledge stops here. Because from here, we just went into what are individual factors, right? Your attitude, stress level, right? Height, weight, gender. What is the organizational factors? Culture, communication, supervision, resources, level of training, support, right? What is the job factors? What are you doing? Is it lifting? Is it pushing? Is it pulling? Is it manual handling? Is it behind controls? Is it behind, like a screen, right? How long you're doing the work? So everything else was just supporting to that. And so the knowledge I tell you really stop here, right? So before I move on, because all of this is just support, watch it. All of this is just support. We call support and information, and there's really no new knowledge here, right? So what I want to do, I want to tell you that you see this thing here called human factors. They could ask anyone. And could you tell me what the mistake would be if you were trying to figure it out? Like, why do people get that wrong? Like in a human factors question, right? They ask human factors. Why do people get it wrong? Well, I'll tell you why. Number one, they don't open the textbook. So when people get it wrong, like they ask individual factors about the worker and students write about the organization. They write about management this and management that. No, if they ask the individual factors, they cannot talk about management, right? So I'm telling you again, I've seen each one job. They ask about job, people talk about the worker. No, they ask about the job. That's about the environment, lighting, temperature, the layout. Do you have any, like, is the environment wet? Is it like, does it have any drops? How long the person working? How much hours, right? Do they get a break? You cannot mix and match the points then. You'll get it wrong. Think you what I'm telling you? Folks, it makes sense reading this. It makes sense reading this, right? But this not going to help you for exam. We're going to help you for the exam is if you understand what I'm trying to tell you now, that people get this thing wrong. Sometimes they're trying, and the thing is, why don't people open my PowerPoints, right? A lot of the degree students say, the degree students use them all the time, right? They say, like, you start from the PowerPoints, right? The PowerPoints have everything. This is probably more than 8 right here, or 10, right? So what are the individual factors that contributed to the accident, right? The case study may have mentioned the person was young, so then you could take inexperience, right? You could take answers from here. You could actually take it as you read the case study too. Some answers will just kind of pop out at you. Like if it said the person was using their phone while operating machinery, but that is probably negligence, right? So not every answer is limited to the textbook. You see, the book have a limited amount as well. Some of them will just pop out at you. Some of them will just say, like if you figure somebody was horse playing, right? They say like the person, saw it jokingly. This is one I'm telling you, somebody jokingly use an extinguisher. They use the extinguisher, spray it on somebody to wake them up. That was a pacifier. And they asked, what is the individual factor, right? So you could say it in your own way. You can probably say the person was horseplay, the person was a bit playful. That is an individual factor, right? It's not limited to what you see here. Now, I think there is one here. If you want, we can go and look at just the same participle had. It doesn't answer this one. Let's go back. Sorry. Yeah. Where's that participle now? Okay. Let's see, right? I think it was this one, right? So human factors is kind of common. I could like in most participles. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, most participants have something on it. Like you could, if you look through, you see something on managers or employees or something like look at this one here, right? You see it's kind of like a heading, organization and job factors, right? Comment on organizational factors that might have negatively influenced health and safety behavior in the nursery. Yeah, what? I feel I'll give you this one for homework this week, right? Let me just make a note of the year because I myself by 4 o'clock this evening I would forget what participle I was talking about, right? So December 2003. No, sorry, 2023. Yeah, 2023. So 17 marks. So you all see what is hard? What is hard is to get 17 organizational factors. That's what is hard. Because the book have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They don't want 8, they want 17. So what you're going to do? Let me hear what you're going to do. What you're going to do to get a 17?
You have to use the case study.
Yeah, and you could probably Google it. You could just probably Google it. Google may have some more. You could just put in Google what are organizational factors and you'll see what they have. And don't just give up in the first one that come up now. The first one that come up, fine. Watch that one, you may get another one. But you too, if you understand what it is, right? You could just make it up enough. That's the thing about tertiary. That's what NIBOSH want. Like NIBOSH want that level of competence. And like if you understand organization, it's all about the managers. So as you read the case study, you may pick up something there that is not in the book then. You may pick up something. But the thing is that they phrase it, right? Yeah, they phrase it in an answer. You have to say, in my view, an organizational factor that might have influenced or negatively influenced health and safety behavior is a lack of consultation. No, consultation is not, actually, yes, consultation is in the book. I was going to say it's not in the book. Kind of guessing that one, but whatever you see they're not doing, a lack of resources, I suppose that's in the book too, right? Actually, that one is, yes, resources is the third point. But like what you see coming out of the case study now, and then you could Google it, and that's the strategy, right? And then the trick now would be to find back the line, right? Second part, what job factors are likely to have influenced the behavior of an injured worker? 11. So I think the slide had plenty, the slide, but what you have to do, you have to break it up. Remember, the slide had the task that was being done, environment could be lighting, you could break up lighting, temperature, workplace. Like when I say workplace, like where you were, like where the person was walking and like, did it have a drop? Did it have an edge? They mentioned frequency, duration, shift, work patterns. You could probably get the 11 from off the slide. If you can't get it there, get it from Google. It's an open book exam, right? But I hope you all understand. I can tell you all that day for you all will most likely be in February. You all are going to write exam. Just now is Christmas. January will finish. I think I mentioned that to you all. February, the first week, the first Wednesday will be an exam, right? And if you can check it from now, I don't have a calendar on me now, but try to get a day off. It'll be a good exam. Don't hurry down anything. Take your time. You pay your money. You have to pass, right? But to pass the paper, I had to go to England and not coming to me, right? And so you need the time. You need the time to kind of search for those things. Googling doesn't take very long. Using the PowerPoints doesn't take very long, right? You get the answers, but it's to kind of mix it and match it back, right? And that is typically a NIBOSH exam. Tell me what you think. We are finished. I'm going to go back to this slide just to give you the supporting information. The questions are not trigonometry, algebra. So the questions are not sine, cosine, and tan. I used to teach maths a long time now, right? So the questions are not that hard. It's not trigonometry we're doing here. It's easy, but it kind of long because it's a kind of military mission you own. It's a kind of search and find or search and rescue. It's a kind of search and find, and that does take long. You see the searching and the finding, that does take long. And you had to use this case study. You can't use anything else. So that's the trick with it anyway, right? So I took a note of it on your register itself. Sometime, maybe Monday. I can't promise you that to her. Tonight I'm out kind of late tonight, right? Tomorrow is 2 classes. Sunday I actually have a flight. But maybe Sunday evening, if I could manage to carry your role, I could email you the question, right? Other than that, I hope I don't forget you all enough because I'm coming back on Wednesday. I didn't want to wait so long. But the thing is the time. You may think you have the time, but I don't have the time. Literally every minute, of my day is filled with something, right? So it's the literal time to construct to give you that email, right? But I took a note of it on the register to send
So,
you December 2023. Yeah.
question. I don't know if you had mentioned it before, but how long after do we write the exam we get back results?
Kind of long, about 6 to 8 weeks. And they email you that directly. Like you get that. They have a way of sending you all that on a Friday night for some strange reason.
Okay.
Yeah. But you could give them up to 8 weeks, which is about 2 months. Sometimes they give it before, right? So sometimes the 7th week, sometimes the 7th and a half week. When you go to write the exam in February, they'll give you like a slip, well, like a slip of paper. So that comes to your email. That normally have the day when results will come out, but they normally do it before that, right?
Okay, thank you.
So like, yeah, if they say, if they say, okay, like so March, April, like if we say the 15th of April, it may come by the 13th or the 10th or the 11th. We have no control over those things. All we know, like on a Friday night, we are now conscious of it that students will you start to see it in the chat. Okay, look, results came in, look, results came in. But like you all actually get it before us too, right? They send it to you all officially directly to your email, and then they send us like a master copy of it, right? All right. With that said, we could get back to this slide a bit and just read it out. The rest of the information I told you was trying to find the slide, was supplementary information. You'll see what I mean by supplementary. It wasn't exam at all, right? You'll see. So the rest of this here kind of said, what is your aptitude? Remember, these are individual factors. And aptitude is a person's capacity for learning something. And aptitude is an innate ability to do a certain kind of work. Aptitudes may be physical or mental. So, I mean, remember, it's not a memory-based exam, so I already know how to read this, but like all of these things about you now, attitude, behavior, perception. Attitude is to act consistently towards a particular object or situation based on an individual's learned response or experience. So your attitude could change. You just have to change what you're putting in your head, what you learned then. And if your attitude change, your behavior will change. An individual's action due to attitude and perceived environment. Perception is the process of interpreting information through our senses. Anybody could read this to me? Like aloud? Anybody could read that first?
A bird in the bush.
Okay, a bird in the bush. Anybody else? It's just a thing on perception. Exactly, a bird in the bush, right? The word THE is actually there twice. Yeah. And then this one, actually these two arrows pointing to the same thing, but you can't see it like this. You have to print this diagram out. And one is like a shadow of the other one is, but you have to print it and fold it, right? But this is not face-to-face, so we don't do that anymore. This one too is a little test on perception. Anybody could start reading this for me? You just start or stop you halfway.
I couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind, according to a research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place.
Thanks very much, Adrian. I'll take it from there. The rest can be a total mess and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind doesn't read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazing how, and I always thought spelling was important. So, I mean, this is like, I mean, if you relate this back to safety, like a worker may come in thinking, well, safety paying good. And, but they don't really believe, like safety could save a life or a hard hat is important, if something fall, but perhaps by being in the company, maybe they would have seen something, right? And so this is just to tell you, like your perception could change now, right? Like at first you thought you couldn't read it, but when you start reading it, you could read it. The point about that is people's perception could change. You'll find that throughout your life. Your perception will change, especially like if like you're now getting into safety. You didn't think this is all of that before, but then it changed. And then it happens with other things. It's not just work, right? It happens with things that you once believe and you change your belief and what. So a lot of things change and people change. You learn that people change and perception change based on the information that you get, right? So like think of it like if like some people say, okay, well, I would never be a vegetarian. And I'm not talking about me because I'm not a vegetarian. But then you like you don't know. The person start looking at videos, this person start looking at things on YouTube, and next thing you see this person who was once, like the biggest, meat lover then turned into a vegetarian. So how did that happen? It happened with you start feeding yourself different information. And so when your perception, when you change what you're putting into your mind, your attitude would follow. When your attitude follow, your behavior will change. We use that same principle for safety. Let me just get to the point here. We use that same principle for like if you read this, you'll see it, right? Could alter a person's perception. If you alter the perception by different information, the attitude will change and the behavior will change. And we do that for safety in what we call propaganda campaigns or awareness campaigns. Like, have you ever noticed that the safety department in a company will have like a safety week? Actually, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, next year Guyana is in February at the Marriott. Trinidad, I think ours is, it probably went already. I know AmCham normally have one at the Hyatt. So like, why is there a safety week? Why is there a safety week in Guyana? Why is there a safety week in Trinidad, right? So what they're trying to do, they're trying to like change the overall perception of people then. And the way to do it is change the information that you feed to them. So you can actually adjust. There's actually a lot of movies on this. One of them is called The Adjustment Bureau. You can actually adjust a person's behavior by changing the information that you feed to them, right? So you could adjust an employee's perception of risk in the workplace. And if you do that for the right reason, it could actually, create a positive culture. I mean, all of that this would be like a knockdown effect. And employee participation is a knockdown effect if you change a person's perception, right? One of the ways they do it in a safety week, what you say, awareness campaigns, right? One of the ways we do it is we just try to figure out what everybody wants. Like you figure what somebody wants then, right? And I suppose maybe society does this too, if you really think about it. Like one of the things they say never to look at is comedies. Don't ever look at comedies. I don't know if you know that. Comedies change a person's perception. If you look at the comedies, now I wasn't a wrong, I just telling you, some people just feel like I was a wrong back in the day now, right? So I wasn't a wrong. Al Jerome knew me, right? But I'm not that old, right? So if you look at these shows, if you look at the television shows that were shown in the 70s, right? Anybody know of these shows now? They probably, because I mean, like, I didn't, like, we saw the reruns of them. Anybody remember seeing a show called Little House on the Prairie? Anybody ever heard about a show, Little House on the Prairie? What about things like, I could call some regular ones. What about things like the Cosby Show? Now, of course, Bill Cosby has gotten into a lot of issues, but you all remember the Cosby Show? A lot of people say, well, don't look at the Cosby Show because of what Bill Cosby. That's not true. The Cosby Show is a very good show. There's a lot of values in the show, right? I'll take it up a notch. What about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? Uncle Phil, right? A lot of the things there was about education, right? The Cosby Show was highly educated, right? They were lawyers. In fact, Bill Cosby, as a black man then in the 80s, 70s, 80s, portrayed the role of a doctor. Bill Cosby was a doctor, right? And a lot of people, mixed, white, black, brown, whatever, grew up believing that I could be a doctor too, right? But you look at the comedies that you see now, so that's it, don't look at the comedies now because there's there's a different, like the people who set up these things, they set it up in a way then you find a lot of them, no offense to the ladies who are here, but a lot of the comedies today are like demasculine. It's kind of like more feminine, right? They show male figures as more like a joke. The male father, the male dad is more like a joke or probably gay. And no offense anyway, I'm just telling you what the shows portray. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, right? But so there's often like what you want the society to be like, you can look and see what is being shown then in terms of what is influencing you, your television, right? Some people say they call it programs for a reason. They program in your mind, right? But not a lot of people, thank God for YouTube, not a lot of people now you can choose what you want if you want to watch, like a motivational video, right? A Denzel Washington. I look at them, right? Andrew Tate. Anybody know who Andrew Tate is here? An Andrew Tate motivational video. Yeah,
Yes,
if you
sir.
don't, yeah, you should probably go and look at them, right? And so you can choose what you want now, but still, like the overall mass media, there is like a hidden agenda then, right? And you could see it in the population. There's an old saying that really does say hard times make, stronger men. And, good times make weaker men, right? And you see it. And the thing is, I'm saying that to say that there's often that agenda then. So just be careful because we too in safety, we do it. Like as a safety, if I was planning a campaign, so you can imagine the people who create these shows are telling you now, if I am doing it, right? If you're planning something for Diwali, which just finished, or Thanksgiving or Christmas coming up, you're planning a program, you have a goal in mind. You have a message that you want to send across, like as a safety week. We know what we want to get. So like we try to cater for the needs of people. So if I know Frank is a low-level worker, and to get Frank to come to my safety meeting or to the safety week, I have to give him a reward. I have to say in the safety week coming up, we have a kind of well, I was gonna say a phrase, but I won't say the phrase, but we have a kind of okay, we have questions and answers, and those who answer, they're gonna get money. We're giving away money. We're giving away money. So the low-level worker, Frank, will say, okay, well, yes, it have safety, we going on to giving away $100. Right? Everybody answer a correct question, getting $100. Now, so that's me planning because I know what motivates the workers. Then I think about the middle managers and them, and they may not want money. But in my meeting, in planning this thing out, I say, okay, pictures will be taken for the company's magazine. So some middle managers would want to see their face in the magazine. They want to hear they say that at the end of the safety week, that in the magazine, the company magazine, it is recorded that Frank, we call him Frank again, that Frank has been here every day. He took part, and we want to say special thank you to Mr. Frank, the general manager. And so that is what he wants. You understand, folks? That's what he wants, right? And then a higher director. So to get the higher director to come to my safety week, I would say, okay, well, we're gonna have like a sort of like a promotional campaign, right? And like we're gonna take some pictures and we can have like a promotion for all of the directors, and then they themselves then could get recognition. So you see, different people want different things they need. They drive, they reward. And some directors may just want to be a part of it. There are some people who reach a stage in life then, right? Like if you have something, they will say, just tell me now, come and be a part of it. So they want to give back to the company. So I would cater to them. So if I am doing that for my safety week, imagine the people who are doing this on a grander scale anyway, right? So just be careful. Like I said, this is how we cater things. Why do you think we have toolbox meeting every morning? It's all about influencing you. It's all about propaganda. Why do you think, we have a video showing? It's all about propaganda. But in terms of safety, we're trying to get you to believe something that is right. Like the hazard makes sense. The safety glasses makes sense. Doing a JSA before the job start makes sense. But what about the people who doing it for the wrong reasons, right? Because that's what I'm telling about human beings. If you watch it here, you can alter a person's perception by providing the appropriate information to them. Once you provide the new information to them, the attitude will change. Once the attitude change, their behavior will change. This is the fact about people, right? I always remember, and you all could remember too, again, folks, I wasn't around, so don't ask me, right? But I could always remember. Well, you could think of another figure, but I'll use this figure in history, which was Hitler, right? Adolf Hitler, World War One. Yes, he was actually a part of World War One, but more so World War Two. Do you know at the point in time that everybody was supporting Hitler? Do you know that? Do you know that the German population was supporting Hitler? Watch the videos, you'll see. Who is cheering the man? Me? I wasn't cheering him. You wasn't cheering him. But the people were like mass hysteria over Hitler, right? When I say he was good at that, and he was good at changing, like good at speaking. He was a good speaker, right? So people followed him. The German population actually believed what he was doing was right. Yeah. They didn't believe he was wrong. They believed he was right. So how did that happen? How did that happen? Right? One of the things Hitler used to do like before he would have gotten to Poland, Hitler, of course, bombed London. If you all did know, in England, right? There's something called the Blitz, right? Where he attacked London, right? And, London, I guess you should go and look at it on YouTube or whatever have you, right? But one of the things he he would do is before he would come to like the next place he would go to attack, then he would drop flyers. You know that he would drop flyers, and what the flyers will have in it? It will have in it. Guess what happened? It will have in it prophecies. Yes. Anybody familiar with the Nostradamus prophecies? Have you heard of the man called Nostradamus before? Yeah. He would drop prophecies, Nostradamus. He would planes and fly, and flyers would just drop mass amount of information. And that's what propaganda is. That's what the safety meeting is, Every Monday you have safety meeting. Every Monday you have safety meeting. Every Monday. That's what it is. It's a mass amount of information. But what those prophecies would have said, it would have told the people that, like, there was a prophecy then saying that Germany would have won. So what he was doing, he was actually defeating the people mentally before he even came. He was defeating them mentally before he even came, right? So this piece of information here about changing a person's perception and attitude and knowledge and behavior is actually well known. It's well known because next year also is election for both countries, Guyana and Trinidad. You think they're not going to tap into that? When you put on the TV, all you see is television ads paid for by the government of the day, right? So you think they're not, if history know this thing about human beings, that human beings could change who you are today, just change the information you're receiving. Think about food you're eating, right? Just think about something simple, like I said, like, like you don't like this kind of food, but then you saw some videos on it. These foods turn out to be healthier for you, and then your perception change, your behavior change, your attitude change, right? So think about something, like think about the music you like, right? You say, okay, well, I don't like silent. When I say silent, like just music alone, right? I never like music alone. I never like, what is like Mozart's, and just like quiet music without words in it. But one of my lecturers many years ago told me, he said, try listening to it, and that kind of music, like you can actually get work done to it. It have music to help you develop your brain waves, right? Certain frequencies, right? 432 hertz frequencies. I never believed in those craziness until I tried it and I saw it. So today, most of the times, even today, I don't have it on today, but most of the times if you come to the office, I have like just music alone playing, but it's no words. It's like a value in that. It does things to your brain then. But how did that happen? Because I was, just like everybody else in Trinidad, you grew up on Well, those of us who grew up in the 80s, dub and sort of reggae, right? That was me, as everybody is. But, today, if I'm in the office, I'll play something just like quiet music because there's a value to it. But how did that happen? It happened because of perception. Information came first and then perception, then the attitude, then the behavior. So you may say, well, I would never listen to this, but you listen to it. Times change, people change. And how will they change? They change by perception, right? The last slide here, folks, to wrap this up. I tell you, none of this was exam, but it's all part of the lecture. It's just not part of the exam, right? The last slide is if you have well-motivated workers, based on how you cater for them, you cater for their need, for their drive, for their incentive, drives for the managers, reward for the low levels workers, reinforcement for those maybe supervisors that are doing a good job. What you'll have less accidents. You'll have what they call less errors and less violations. Now, we're not going to get into this chart because this is a chart from the degree level, right? But the concept is that if you have more motivated workers, you have less human failures. And human failures can be grouped as errors or violations, but you'll have less of that if you have more motivated workers. And if you turn the page, I can tell you, the lesson is sort of finished, right? So what we can do, I don't know if you wanted to kind of get a little grip on the project, because if you turn, you're going to see 3.4. I could discuss just the overall view of it for you now if you wanted to, right? It'll help us out next week a bit. I'm not going to open a new slide. I'm just going to, remember, this is not your course. So this is the degree here. I'm just going to put this here to tell you, to kind of end off the lesson the right way, right? But that part of it is not errors and violation, is the degree level, right? So let's kind of talk about the project briefly a bit. If you want, I can attempt to show you too, but let me talk about it first. Briefly, remember, this is not, in any way, this is not the project video, nothing like that. But this is an overview of your project, right? If I could have gotten a blank slide out of, let me see if I could get a blank slide. I don't want to create a blank slide. Because I with less writing, I could write on that. One of these have lots of writing on them. Guess I could use that one. I guess I'll use this one, right? All right, so you can start writing. So I'll run through all of this with you tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, next week. Right, next week. And the project will take us about 3 weeks. So it's not just 1 week alone, right? So you can stop me and ask if you have any questions, right? As we get into this now. So the first thing here is that to be awarded the certificate, you have to pass the open book exam. And you saw what that is like on the project, right? So the project actually have 4 parts. I'm just going to run through them with you here. The first part of the project is the introduction. So let's put intro, right? And I'll talk about that in a bit, right? So the introduction is pretty simple. What I'll have to remember to that, I have to remember, let me just write it down on your rule. Okay, that's what I remember, right? I'll just send you the project forms. So you should have it for next week, right? So to send project forms, right? So remember the project. So just if you want to take some sub-points, the project could be done at home. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to get anybody permission to go, Proman or Atlantic. You can just do it at home, right? So it's kind of still under the pandemic way of testing, then it's meant to be done at home. So you don't have to get any permission anyway. A lot of these things could be made up. And just if when I send the forms, if you print them, you could just fill it out when we're doing it one time. It could be made up. So what that means, the name of the company can be made up. You could just make up a name. AJG, right? KC Contractors Limited. You could just make up a name. That's the nature of it anyway, right? Anyway, going on to point number 2, the part 2 of it is something called a risk assessment table. This is going to be kind of long. You have to get 10 hazards for the table. And there was some of that we mentioned in orientation already. The good news here, I think I told it, is that NEBOSH give you a list to choose from. So the list have about maybe 20 in it, and they just have to choose 10 from it. So very important here, wherever things are very important, I'm saying it twice, right? So very important is that the 10 must come from the list. The 10 hazards cannot come from your imagination alone. When I say imagination alone, then maybe I should show you the list. I'll try to show it in a bit. Let me finish off number 4 and I'll show you the list. So you must choose from the list, right? You cannot choose what you want. You have to choose from the list. They give you a list and they tell you use the list. I'll show you. They actually say use the list, right? If you choose anything not on the list, you're not going to pass the project, right? The third part of this is you have to write a moral. Could I just put the letter M? A moral, legal, and financial argument why health and safety should be managed. Moral, legal, and financial. And there's a space for it. So it's not like if you have to guess. It's a space. You see the word moral in the left-hand side. And then you'll see legal. And then you'll see financial. There's a space for each one of them. Right? Part 3 don't have 2 parts. So this is 3 part A. The 3 part B, you have to take out 3 of the hazards from the 10. And they wanted to do some things with them, which is too much to talk about now, because this is just an overview, right? So you are going to sort of use from your 10, they want what you saw to be the main concern, the second main concern, the third main concern. And you talk about those. When I say talk about them, you actually have a space then, and they want certain things from them. If you remember the class on ACOPS, they actually wanted to put the regulation for those hazards. We did that class already. Right? They wanted to put the regulation for the hazard. They wanted to put the risk for the likelihood and the severity. But there's a space for it. When I see a space, I'll show you just now, right? It's like a T diagram. You have the left-hand side and you just fill in on the right-hand side. Part 4 is very easy. Part 4 is you're just going to put like when to review the risk assessment. There's a space for that to put in a review day. You need to put in who you need to tell. Remember, this is just an overview, and this is not all of it. Who you need to tell, and I think how you communicate the risk assessment to different people. Part 4 is very simple, right? So the review date, who you need to tell, how you need to tell them. Like if you need to give them a memo, a notice, an email, that's what we mean by how. You need to inform them, remind them with an email, right? So that's the 4 parts of the project: the introduction, the risk assessment table, the part 3, moral, legal, financial, and then the 3 hazards overview. Part 4 is just a review date, who and how. Now, each part does take a different length of time. The good news I'll tell you all, if you didn't hear it as yet, your project is due the 3rd week in January. I didn't mention this to you all, but guess what happens this time of the year? Christmas. So even if when we close off for December, a lot of people don't use that time then to do anything. You kind of stumble out at Christmas in January and still realize like you didn't get enough time. Right? I just telling you what is normal. You may find 1 student in the class do what they had to do and 1 person finish by the 3rd week in January. Right? However, you must hand up, because if you don't hand up, you wouldn't pass. We do look at drafts. I'd mentioned that to you all, so you can send in your draft anytime, including 2 weeks from now. Yeah. You could send in your introduction. You could send in, like when you finish them, you could send them. I don't mind. But there'll come a time when I do mind, because remember, I have to go to NEBOSH. So in February, we have to send it to NEBOSH the same day as your exam. So if you send it, if that's the first time I've seen it from November, you send it the day for the exam, I wouldn't be able to look at it, right? I would just have to send it to the UK. And this is why I think when you all join, somebody must have mentioned, what's the pass rate? And I said, it all depends on you, right? Because the ideal thing is that when I do part one, you do part one. It's kind of like that song, when I move, you move, right? But the thing is, when I move, people don't move, right? But when I move, if you move, if I finish part one, then you finish part one. If I finish part two, you finish part two. Finish part three, you finish part three. But people don't finish. Few people do. Few people do, right? No, you don't have to finish in the week. That's what I'm telling you, right? You could finish in January. You could take a note of that. But once you finish, send it now, right? Part one is very simple, right? Part two is kind of long, but the thing is, hear what, right? Some people say it's long and whatever, but what you're waiting for? The same time it's going to take to do it in November. It's the same time it'll take to do it in January anyway, right? The same hour every night, you have to finish it in January. Why does we finish it in November, December, right? And send it in. It's the same thing, unless if somehow the workload not going to change. It's the same thing. But I'm telling you, there's a day coming. All the classes know that, right? All the classes know. Like this week coming is exam. This week, the 4th of November is exam. So it have a batch that is there. That's the day it have to go to England, right? And let me tell you something, from that class, right? I got one project. Yeah. I email them, I sent a reminder, what is do I have to do? The thing is, they pay the money already, so in a way, I should just hush my mouth, right? Yeah, they paid, if they pay the money already, so what to work? But then those who know me know that that's not me. I cannot be that way. Those who know me know that, right? So you know what I normally do? The deadline will come and I will still give them a deadline. I would still say, here what? I still sometimes ask NIBOSH for extra time, try to get these projects to come in, because remember, you cannot get this cert in your hand. So do you want it? If you want it, but then somebody will get squeezed out. That happens, and it is like a kind of rush to the end, like a kind of bottleneck effect. But eventually somebody gets left out. I hope this class is different, but I'm telling you what it has. But I had a class like that some years ago. Could have been 2019 when everybody did the project and hand up on time. Sorry, also 2022. 2022, I had 2 times I got 100% passes. Twice, like back to back. But if one person do hand up the draft, if one person, and remember, we're here to help you. What is the purpose of the draft? The purpose of the draft is for me to see if you did what you had to do, right? And if you didn't do it, we're here to help you. But if you hand it up the day it's due, or the day when it's due, because if we ask for another extension, then we just have to send it, right? But it's your money, right? It's your money, right? Okay, if you want, I think I'll close off here, because the thing is, I didn't put anything in the view screen and where the project is concerned. It's about 20 past 10. I know me kind of call the roll, and me time that is about 25 past before we get into the degree class, which is starting in a bit, right? So let me stop the recording.